Good morning. I am the Reverend Dr. Juwan Zakoven, pastor of the Olivet Institutional Baptist Church here in Cleveland, Ohio. I am in the company of Mr. Bakari Katwana, activist and author, Dr. Rhonda Williams, social justice, head of the Social Justice Institute at Case Western Reserve University, Mr. Ed Little, expert in the area of criminal and juvenile justice, Mr. Joe Worthy of the Children's Defense Fund, the Reverend Dr. Ari Vernon, senior pastor of the Word Church, Ms. Julia Shearson of the Council of American Arab Relations, Cleveland chapter, and Ms. Rachel Smith, a community activist. We also have standing with us attorneys Walter Madison, a representative of the estate of Tamir Rice, and attorney Michael Nelson, chair of the Criminal Justice Committee of the Cleveland NAACP. Today, I and 7 of the aforementioned individuals have filed just a few moments ago in municipal court a citizen's affidavit for probable cause in the death of Tamir Rice. The Ohio Revised Code allows for any person who believes that a crime is being committed the legal option to make their case directly known to the courts. We have done just that. We believe that officers Timothy Lohman and Frank Garnback caused the death of Tamir Rice in deeds which were unconscionable, reprehensible, and yes, criminal. We believe that these officers charged to enforce the law themselves stepped outside of the law and therefore are subject to the same process of scrutiny, examination, and expedience of the judicial process as each member of our nation. So let me be clear. Today we are not taking actions against police officers. We are taking actions for the people. Those who take a sworn oath to protect and serve the people, protect and serve in the name of the people. And when the people believe something has been done in their name through the deeds of their public servants that is illegal and criminal, the people have the right to hold those actions and those individuals accountable. So today, as citizens, we are taking this matter and the matter of justice into our hands, using the tools of democracy as an instrument to ensure that every person, regardless of their race, religion, sex, orientation, social class, or profession, is ensured that their rights as victims, citizens, and human beings are respected in the courts and throughout society. We believe that we are on the right side of history and that our actions are in a long human and civil rights tradition of persons like Ella Baker, Medgar Evers, Septima Clark, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and many others who have used the words of our democracy to hold our nation's systems accountable and make this country a better place for all. Dr. Vernon.
I'm Dr. Ari Vernon, founder and senior pastor of the Word Church. You know, I was raised right around the corner from here in the projects of Cleveland, and nobody is as excited as me about the prospect of being champions of the world for the NBA. It's amazing that we're seeking to be champions, and I want that as much as anybody, but yet I want to be a champion for justice. We're saying that we're all in for the Cavs, and I am too, born and raised here in Cleveland, but I'm also all in for Tamir Rice, and not only him, but every young black child that he represents. As I stand here, I'm reminded of the words of President Obama when Trayvon Martin lost his life. He said that if he had a son, his son probably would have looked something like Trayvon Martin. Well, I have analogous sentiments in that I do have 3 sons, and ironically, they all do look something like young Tamir Rice. I found that some interesting commentary went forth, and the commentary was, why would we circumvent our criminal justice system? Why not just wait? And my question was, wait on the same criminal justice system that said it was all right for Mike Brown to get no justice, the same criminal justice system that said it was heroic for Officer Brillo to shoot and then load and shoot again. Is that the criminal justice system that we should wait on? I think as citizens, we have to do our best to get justice. I'm not happy about having to do this. As an American citizen, I wish that I could depend on our criminal justice system to do what was right. Dr. King said the time is always right to do what is right. In closing, I'll just say, I'm not standing here. Dr. King said, vanity asks the question, is it popular? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? But conscience asks the question, is it right? I stand here because something in my heart told me that was one of my 3 sons, how much of my popularity, my resources, our large church would I use to get justice for my baby. So I stand here alone with these 7 courageous individuals because we believe that what happened to Tamir deserves justice. I have to say this, I don't think that they are terrible men. They may even regret what they did. Maybe they didn't even do it on purpose, but they did it. And when you make mistakes like that, you have to be accountable. Thank you.
My name is Rhonda Williams. I'm the founder and director of the Social Justice Institute at Case Western Reserve University. Social justice is about collective interests, fighting against injustice. It is about uplifting and upholding human rights and dignity. A 12-year-old boy who lived and played and went to school in Cleveland, Ohio, Tamir Rice, is dead. And he is the victim of deadly force meted out by the Cleveland Division of Police. This we know, this we saw. Tamir will not see his 13th birthday. So collectively, people of conscience, locally and nationally, a diverse cross-section of people have been demanding and pleading and waiting for the criminal justice system to respond. And in the meantime, many of us have attended public hearings and meetings at the city and state levels. We've crafted recommendations as part of the consent decree process and worked and continue to work with each other and the community to seek change. But let's be clear and let's be honest. People are asking a lot of critical questions, a lot of critical and weighty questions, whether we want to face those questions or not. Why is Tamir dead? Will any of these reforms help? Will we get justice for Tamir? If Tamir was white, would he still be living? Indeed, indeed, indeed. People who have seen the video of Tamir's death are experiencing a range of emotions, understandable emotions, incomprehension, disgust, anger, fear, disappointment, and lack of faith, none of which are prescriptions for building community trust and transparency in the policing and criminal justice system. So we, myself and all of my comrades who stand around me, cloaking me with their wisdom and their energy and their support, and that's what we do for each other, we have decided to come together to assert a collective right to lift up community voice, to provide community input, and be engaged as community residents. As Edward Said has written in his essay, Speaking Truth to Power, he said, "Nothing, in my view, is more reprehensible than those habits of mind that induce avoidance and a characteristic turning away from a difficult and principled position. And especially, as he argues, especially turning away because you do not want to appear too political. You do not want to appear too political. You are afraid of seeming controversial, or you need the approval of a boss or an authority figure. So let me ask you, all of those listening and talking and reading and tweeting and hashtagging and broadcasting and whatever other forms of communication I have failed to capture, do we continue to sow the seeds of seeming disinterest and distrust and the perception that black lives don't matter? That's not what we want. And I imagine, I hope that's not what law enforcement wants either. So let's move forward. We cannot continue business as usual. We cannot continue business as usual. We want to see a new day, one built on safety, one built on fairness, one built on equity. We want to see a just criminal justice system and a just society. Thank you.
My name is Joe Worthy. I am the Ohio Director for Youth Leadership and Organizing at the Children's Defense Fund. And I just want to lift up the question that Dr. Rhonda was asking, would Tamir still be alive if he was a white boy? And I think that's a critical question, and the truth is we'll never know for a lot of reasons. One of those reasons is that black communities are policed far more often than white communities. And so 12-year-old white boys probably would never even face the probability of an officer coming and shooting them down for playing with a toy. And we have to deal with this reality that our children are constantly on guard, and they have a very real fear of being shot down by police, the people who are supposed to protect them. And because the police have chosen rather to kill than to protect our children, our community is forced to step up for our children, where our mayor, our police, and our city prosecutor have refused to. Let's be clear, this is more than about the law. This is about a moral obligation to speak truth to folks in power when they refuse to. It's about a moral obligation for my little nieces and nephews who are on the streets of Cleveland every day, and I fear for their life every day. And it's about a moral obligation to step up for Tamir, and our children, and to make sure that the power dynamics in this city between its citizens and its police are changing. Because if we don't have that, then we won't have justice. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rachel Smith, a Cleveland activist, resident, and the mother of a girl who was 12 years old when Tamir was killed. Tamir Rice was killed 2 miles from my daughter's school. But when I went home, I had to check her yearbook to see if it was a classmate. I didn't have to check her bed. I didn't have to check her room. I didn't have to call her friends. That realization was a profound impact on myself and the fact that we need to call for justice, which is why that we're here. And people will say, why are you making it about race? But the denial from white people that this is about race furthers the oppression of the system. In the words of Audre Lorde, without community there is no liberation, but community must not mean a shedding of our differences, nor the pathetic pretense that these differences do not exist. We stand here as a cross-section of the community, a community that can join together and rally around the Cavs and say that we're all in for Cleveland. But as a community, any one of us who have seen the video of Tamir's shooting, we're all witnesses. And we need to come together and be all in for justice.
Because of the construction noise and those who have cell phones without microphones, I'm going to speak up. I hope that that's okay. The Council on American Islamic Relations, Ohio affiliate, Cleveland chapter, is joining this action today alongside distinguished members of the clergy, civil rights leaders, activists, and academics to help advance the cause of justice in the case of Tamir Rice, so that the people of the greater Cleveland area can begin to heal from this terrible wound. My community, the Muslim American community, is 30% African American. That is another reason why I am here today. Who was Tamir Rice? He was a 12-year-old boy playing with a toy gun in the recreation center across the street from his house on November 22nd, 2014, when he was killed by 2 officers who acted willfully, callously, and recklessly when they pulled up to him, shot him in .792 seconds. Not 2 seconds, .792 seconds, and then left him to bleed out on the ground without providing first aid of any kind. After so tragic an act, a moral person, a righteous person, would at least have tried to staunch the flow of this boy's blood. But even that did not happen. Even more tragic, the young sister of Tamir Rice, who tried to rush to her brother's aid as he lay dying, was tackled to the ground by police and put into the back of a police car where she was forced to watch her brother's life drain away. There is no excuse for this kind of cruelty, no justification, no reason, no excuse for that kind of treatment, no cause. Many of us in the greater Cleveland community have a deep understanding, a lived understanding of the unfairness of the current criminal justice system, not just locally, but across the country. What we have is unequal protection writ large across the land. We have created a two-tiered system, parallel worlds, so to speak. In terms of criminal justice, we have no equal justice. In fact, we have two separate and unequal systems. On one end, we have a system of justice, of white justice, that accords great deference and increased procedural due process for police officers and others who have stature and power in our communities. In this system, the grand jury process looks more like a trial, where exculpatory evidence is put on show to present officers in the best light. This system stands in a parallel universe alongside a system of black justice, which is a corrupt, morally bankrupt set of rules and procedures that have a disparate, negative impact on communities of color, creating a new Jim Crow of social control that funnels people of color and poor people into jail too easily. We have one system that allows police officers great deference and solicitude beyond reason, beyond right, and beyond bounds. And another system that prevents justice for people of color and those without means. There is no way in a fair and equal justice system that those men who killed Tamir Rice, a boy, and watched him bleed to death, can escape justice without at least being charged. We are just asking that they be charged and brought before the people in a trial according to due process of the law and a jury of their peers or a judicial bench. And to see whether or not they shall live free without punishment, without accountability, or whether they, just like others, should be held to reasonable moral standards of proper and just conduct. We are here today because we waited more than 6 months, and yet still there is no accountability. For the Cleveland community, this is a frustrating hour. But we hope it will not be long now before the wheels of justice, taken into the hands of the people through democratic means, through the duly constituted laws of the state of Ohio, will bring forward a new justice. To paraphrase the words of Martin Luther King, I know you are asking today, how long will it take? Somebody's asking, how long will prejudice blind the visions of men, darken their understanding, and drive bright-eyed wisdom from her sacred throne? Somebody's asking, when will wounded justice, lying prostrate on the streets of Cleveland, lying prostrate at Cudell Rec Center, and communities all over the country, be lifted from the dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of men? Somebody's asking, when will the radiant star of hope be plunged against the nocturnal bosom of this lonely night? However frustrating the hour, and I'm paraphrasing, it will not be long, because truth crushed to the earth will rise again. How long? Not long, because no lie can live forever. How long? Not long, because you shall reap what you sow. How long? Not long, because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. How long? Let's hope and pray, not long.
My name is Edward Little. I'm a criminal justice consultant, and I stand before you today on behalf of the thousands of individuals that cycle in and out of this building each and every day, seeking justice. And it doesn't take over 6 months for them to be charged, convicted, and sent to prison. I stand before you today on behalf of the over 400 people who have been unjustly killed by police in this country already. I stand before you today on behalf of the over 2 million people who are incarcerated in jails and prisons all over this country. I stand before you today on behalf of Tamir Rice, because he cannot speak for himself today. A beautiful young boy doing what any young boy should do, play in a park, right across the street from his house where his mother can look out the window and see him. We stand for him. We as concerned citizens stand together for him today. We are not children, and we will not be spoon-fed justice. We want justice now. We will take questions.
One statement, one last statement.
I just want to underscore a lot of what's already been said, but essentially, from across this nation, from Ferguson to Baltimore to Cleveland, I think that what young people have been saying essentially is that raising the question, are the police above the law? We are presented with a contradiction of young blacks being treated harshly by the law and the police being coddled. And so this coming together today, our hope is to just pose the question, is this court okay with that? Is this court going to allow for the continuing of this type of two-tiered justice in our city? Everyone's excited about the Cleveland Cavaliers, but where is the justice? Where's the excitement about justice? Everyone is concerned about whether or not the city of Cleveland is going to riot and tear down property, but where is the rioting and the concern for justice? And this is what we hope to put this challenge before this city today. Thank you.
Sir, your name too?
My name is Bakari Kitwan. I'm the author of The Hip Hop Generation. I'm sorry.
We'll open it up for questions.
Could you please explain how you believe using this self-inclusion provision of Ohio law will lead to a better and more just and your view more desirable outcome? What difference will it make?
Attorney Walter Madison, representative of the estate of Tamir Rice. What you see here today is one of the most American things I've seen in my life. The people have decided to take the opportunity to make the government work for them. This is not a contradiction. This is not a circumvention. This is simply applying the law that is available so that our government is responsible and accountable to us. So simply, to your question, we expect the court to follow the statute. The people perceive from one of their natural five senses a crime has committed, and that crime is a felony. And we're asking the court, as prescribed by this statute, 60 years old, it's nothing new. We're asking the court to issue a warrant because there's probable cause.
Obviously, there's clear frustration here that you've already expressed. Can you talk a little bit about the city decision to hand it over to the Sheriff's Department? The city has a 90-day policy on wrapping up these investigations. Do you think it was a delay package on behalf of the city?
Well, we're active and we're being civic here. No one said anything about the 90-day period with the city. What we're focused on is for the people, by the people, and that's what this collection represents.
How does this affect the civil suits?
One has nothing to do with the other.
Well, does the law that you're using allow you to pick a judge and to go in and get assigned to the lottery?
We did not select the judge. The clerk of courts signed that to the chief administrative judge in the Cleveland Municipal Court, and that's where these community leaders and activists presented their affidavit for probable cause for arrest.
Will those charges still have to go to the grand jury?
All felonies must be presented to a grand jury unless an individual waives that right, and then ultimately it makes its way to the common pleas division.
Would there be an arrest for the grand jury possibly?
We are asking for an arrest. That's what the statute calls for.
What are the specific charges you were seeking in the affidavit?
These community members perceive the crime of aggravated murder, murder, involuntary manslaughter, reckless homicide, negligent homicide, as well as dereliction of duty. These are quite similar to the claims that were made and indicted by Mr. McGinney against Mr. Brelo and those other officers.
You know, there's one thing that we need to clarify. We're not asking